Anytime you hang on during the break, we'll get right to you. Back to the phone lines at 888-957-9570. Let's kick things off with Austin hanging out in San Jose. Hey, Austin.
Hey, fellas, what's up? Great conversation. Listen, how about a contrast last night with Miami and their organization and the Warriors? The Warriors have won 4 championships, a great organization, so we're not going to go there. But Miami's been consistent through the years, and the one thing I think that they do better than anybody is the players know they don't run the team. Whether it's Spoelstra or and the Don up in the big office out there, Riley, they know they don't run the team, and they know they can be moved anytime. The problem with the Warriors is that they've allowed the players to kind of run the organization. Even though Joe Lacob pretends to be the guy in charge, he really isn't. I think he's really intimidated by the players. And looking at I think they probably should have moved Draymond when the whole thing with Poole went down. They should have moved both of them. Then he would have sent a message. Hey, this is about winning. It's not about crap. And that's what I think they made the mistake is around entitlement. And then with Klay Thompson almost refusing to go to the bench. What's going on here? Is who's running the team? I mean, it's time for Dunleavy to take control of the team and let the players know, hey, this is about winning. If you don't perform, you're going to be out of here, guys. That's my thought. Happy New Year.
Appreciate you. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. You're obligated to hear your veteran players. You're paying them a ton. They have a seat at the table. You're obligated to hear their voices. You're not obligated to listen to them. And there's a major difference. And I think he hit on something that's totally right on the money. They tiptoe around their star players. Kerr does. I mean, Kerr definitely does. My goodness, he refuses to even acknowledge that there's been any slippage in Klay Thompson's game. They have not had those hard conversations that need to be had. And Lacob, I wasn't sure what kind of owner he would be. If he would be the kind of owner that would, be kind of cold and calculating and move on from guys, or if he would, have that kind of soft spot for them. And I don't know if you want to call it a soft spot or if it's a calculated business decision, because he feels like moving off of the big three changes them from a iconic dynastic type team that has greater interest and sellability to just another team that's in the West competing for a bottom seed. You know what I mean? I mean, if you have Clay and Draymond and Steph, you still have the face of a dynasty. And, maybe there's something that goes along with that. But I agree with the caller wholeheartedly. It seems like that they don't just hear their players, but they listen to their players. And not in all situations. I mean, heck, if they listen to their players strictly, they would have had Avery Bradley and not CP3 or CP2. GP2, I should say. But instead, their
Bradley
players
Beal, I think they wanted at one point.
Yeah, so they haven't always listened to their players. I think they do. It's not totally the way he described it, but I don't think there's any doubt that Kerr has coached this thing. Like, hey man, I don't want to get stank eye from Clay. Hey man, Steve wants to keep everything on the rails and keep the train moving, but there need to be some harsh, real conversations had and some real adjustments made and probably a transaction or two. And it may not be comfortable for everybody, and it may not be what Steph or Clay or Draymond wants. And I agree with the caller. I think the Warriors ought to be real strong and independent of their own players and map this thing out for the good of the franchise.
Yeah, the caller was spot on when he talks about the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler talked about this. He'd been well-traveled, Minnesota, Chicago, and it just didn't work out in Philadelphia briefly. And then he said he went to Miami, and it was almost like a collegiate experience. Like, that Riley is running things. They literally have to take a physical. Like, you've got to run and hit certain times, and it's not easy just to go to camp. Like, you work out, and you work out hard. It is very almost collegiate-esque. And Miami is, if you look at them,
they've had great stability, too. I mean, Spoelstra's been there for almost 20 years.
Eastern Conference Finals last year. I mean, it's a team that, sometimes doesn't have the best talent, but there's certainly a distinct personality about that team. And as it relates to the Warriors and Steve Kerr, let me just throw this out at you. Does Steve Kerr, because his contract is he insulated with these guys thinking, you know what, I'm going down with these guys. This isn't about passing the torch and thinking about tomorrow. No, I'm ensconced with Clay, Steph, and Draymond. We came into this together, and we're going to go out together. Is he thinking just, that he's one of them, essentially?
I don't know. I mean, I talked to Steve sitting in for somebody here in the last year, and I asked him about his future, and he painted a picture where he loves coaching. He loves coaching this team. He loves being in this market, and he could see himself doing this for years to come. And yet, I don't know. There's a weird vibe about it. Is he at the end? Are they, I'll say this. There's a huge portion of the fan base that is now kind of, for the first time, kind of openly complaining about Steve, despite the fact that he's delivered the franchise 4 championships. Now, some people would say, they don't appreciate Kerr. Other people would say that Kerr hasn't adjusted well. As his team has evolved, has his rotation evolved? I mean, he seems like he wants to coach these guys, but 3 years ago. And Klay Thompson's not that player anymore. And Wiggins doesn't look like the player that he was in the finals against the Celtics. So, and Draymond, can't even get on the floor and stay on the floor. And they've got some young up-and-coming players that would really benefit from some consistent time. You know how Jaime Jaquez gets 33 minutes a game. I'd like to see Moses Moody get close to that. I'd like to see Jonathan Kuminga get close to that. I'd like to see Podziemski and Trace Jackson-Davis get some more run. And they're kind of blocked by guys who, I don't know Andrew Wiggins, but he just seems like he's just kind of cruising. He's an 11-year vet who had 1 All-Star season. He's made $200 million. And he just kind of seems like, I'm kind of cruising along. But I don't get Steve's rotation. And it feels like he decides on his rotation before the game. Why do I say that? At halftime last night, TJD, Moody, CP3, and Wiggins were the only players in the plus, on the plus-minus. And Moody, who had played, I think he played, 5 minutes in the second quarter, 13 minutes overall, didn't play at all in the third quarter, and then gets at 8 minutes, the rest of the minutes, the 8 minutes in the fourth. Played good in the second, good in the fourth, didn't play in the third, and that's when the game was lost. And it's like, so I don't, if you're Moses, how are you supposed to get any flow in that situation? He still had double figures. He still scored 11 points in 13 minutes. He was plus 10. It's like, it's almost like, okay, I've got to go back to these guys. Otherwise, Clay's going to give me the evil eye, or Wiggins is going to be unhappy. And it just, it's a weird vibe right now. It seems like a really difficult nightly chore for Kerr to play the right rotation. And there's a lot of players that are very similar, and it's hard to gauge who's the right combination. I think he's struggling with it.
888-957-9570. Off to Dublin. Let's hear from Rob. Rob, what's on your mind? Welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon, fellas. Hey, man, I just want to say, these guys are professionals. I got it. They make a lot of money. But, bro, that's the coach. The coach say you on the bench, you on the bench. You on the bench for a reason, because these cats is balling. They need to start TJD. They need to start Moody, Kuminga. These guys all need to get running, just like you said. How can you get flow if you hit 4 minutes in the first half, 7 in the second half? You're not getting no flow of the game. Come on, man. We got to change into the guard. Let these cats get their little run in every 5-10 minutes, but put the ballers in. It's going to ball.
All right, Rob, thanks so much. Are we at that point? Are we at the point where you sit Wiggins, you sit Klay Thompson? Is that what we're referring to? Because, there's a lot of this is just conjecture, but if we're to make serious changes, are we saying that, okay, we're at the point, because Podziemski's getting run, TJD, I think they're, as much as, I'd like to see him replace Looney, but I think he's coming along as you'd like to see. Now, they're a little late to the party, because I'm with you. I think he should have started from Jump Street. But are we at the point now where we're saying, okay, Kuminga as well as Moody are replacing Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins.
These guys, the younger guys, Moody and Kuminga, are ready to play more minutes. There's no doubt. They're ready to play more minutes. Is Steve ready to have them play more minutes? Is the main question. I'll say one other thing I want to credit Miami on last night. I thought Miami under Spoelstra, and he's a great coach, man. He really is. They knew exactly when, throughout the different runs in this game, to go to, kind of switch back and forth between their zones and their man-to-man concepts. And I just thought the timing of when they went to man-to-man, when they decided to go to a zone, was just so right on. I just feel like Spoelstra's just in such lockstep with his team. So, I mean, Steve's right. They got outplayed. They got outcoached.
Yes, they did. Why is it that because everybody plays a zone and does the same thing, but it seemed like last night when Spo went to a zone, like you noticed it. You're like, holy crap, how do you break this zone? Everybody plays a zone, but for some reason their zone was so difficult. It looked as though, and I don't know, were they 2-3, a triangle in one, but it looked as though, how do you break this code? They do things a little differently, which is sort of rare in what is a homogenous league where everybody is sort of similar to everybody else. Back to the phone lines. Let's get out to Berkeley. Doug joins the conversation. What's up, Doug?
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking the call. How you doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I got the day off. I'm doing really well. What I want to say is, you just mentioned about Moses Moody, and he's in, he's out, he's playing well, then he doesn't play the third quarter. It's really hard. Now you know how Jordan Poole feels. Okay. Kerr's a great coach. He plays veterans really well. He historically, in my view, has had a hard time. He doesn't develop rookies well. He doesn't develop young players well. He's doing a little bit better job this year. He did a horrible job the last 2 years. And it's a problem. It's a tougher problem now because he's got a lot of young guys who are good and might be great, but he's got too many of them almost. With the old guys, the big three still demanding time, Steph still deserving all the time. It's a tough spot, but he historically it's not his forte. It's not Kerr's forte, and I think maybe that's why he's not got a contract this year because I don't think he knows exactly what's going on. But Kuminga's complaining recently. This is the last thing I'm going to say. Kuminga's complaining recently, and I'm not harsh on anybody, but young man, you're 20 years old. You have possibly a 15-year very good to excellent future in this league. When you're on the bench, sit down, shut up, observe, and learn. Because if you do that, in addition to your natural talents, you're going to be great. I know that was a lot, but there's a lot of players on this team that need more time. It's hard to get them more time, and Kerr's not doing the best job of figuring out which time to put them in and which time not to. And you can see why some are disgruntled, and you can see why Jordan Poole's probably smiling right now. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Doug. I'd say this, that I do think Podziemski's getting an opportunity to play. I think TJD is also getting some run. Now I'm with you. I think they're a little late to the party, but better late than never, as they like to say.
Yeah, it's for TJD. This is a recent development, but you're right. TJD's look good, and he had a double-double last night. I mean, he to me, he should be starting over Lee.
I agree. But when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga, I just have to stop there because when you look at Andrew Wiggins, what he did against Denver, and he played really well. So it's the fourth quarter, and again, I'm seeing Kuminga regress with the 6 turnovers. He was minus 26 overall. Am I going to play him in the fourth quarter after he was so bad the first 3 and not stay with Andrew Wiggins, who was so good last time out? I mean, can you see Kerr's logic? And
I just think of it, I look at it this way. It's easier for young players, I think it's easier for veteran players to come off the bench in all sports, but in basketball as well. It's easier for veterans to, come off the bench and blend in than it is for a rookie. And the Warriors are starting their veterans and they're bringing their rookies off the bench. And, it's hard to say, okay, you're going to get a brief stint, make it happen now. Veterans seem like they're way more ideally suited for that. So I would just like to see, they don't need to play all their kids all the time or anything, but as I said, I'd like to see Clay and Steph and Chris Paul on the floor together. But I like to see Kuminga and TJD, especially on a team that lacks size and athleticism in the front court, play your size and athleticism. And Kuminga plays bigger than he is. He's a 6'8" player who plays like 6'10". He's got long arms. He can block shots. He can rebound the ball. And TJD gets off the floor and knows how to play. So I think I would definitely want to see Kuminga and TJD getting front court minutes. And I'd love to see them make a move to get a little bigger. That's the other thing. Some nights they just get outsized. And that's fine if you can shoot the basketball. But when you're 24th in the league in field goal percentage and you're shooting 46% as a team and you're small, real small at times with Steph and CP3, come on. At that point, you got to have some more size than they have. They just have a lot of smaller players. So, they've started to play Trace Jackson Davis, and it's been a positive thing. I just would love to see the young players, and Moody's one of them, know what they're going to get, what their role is night after night after night. There's kind of a chaotic feel to Steve's rotation, and I'm not sure exactly what the solution is, other than you may want to make a major move and shake up this roster a little bit. It doesn't seem like the kind of roster. We're 31 games in. Right now, do they seem like a title contender to you, or do they seem like a team that's going to be the back end of the playoffs, or maybe even on the outside looking in? To me, they don't seem like a title contender. So I would shake it up. It's hard to know exactly what's out there move-wise, but I think they badly need something major and relatively quick to happen to kind of shake up their whole vibe, because last night was bad. That was an embarrassing loss. The Heat were down 3 major players, and you get run off your home floor. That's a bad look.
Trace Jackson Davis, I'm with you. He has to play. He is, to your point, how this is a small team, he's your best rim protector. And that's not a take. That's just, I think Steve Kerr, if he was sitting next to us right now, he'd say, yeah, he's my best rim protector right now. That's not what Kevon Looney does. So he's got to get minutes. Brandon Podziemski, I think, is, he's getting his minutes. Again, when it comes to Kuminga and when it comes to Moody thing, I can't understand. The only thing I would say, maybe, Moses, if you're listening, maybe you take a page from the script of Jonathan Kuminga and you complain a little bit more. I think he's got a little Kevon Looney in him. He's sort of a nice guy. Nice guys, you know what they say. He just gets sort of like, well, I know he's not going to complain. And he just sort of gets passed over and forgotten.
That's so right on. That's so on the money. It's unbelievable. You're totally right. The first year, you're like, hey, it's kind of refreshing. He's a rookie. He's respectful. He's just going to take any role they want to give him, and he's fine with it. And he'll just do the best. But now you get the feeling that his easygoing personality has just made it easier for Kerr to leave him on the bench. Where other guys are, if he leaves Clay on the bench, Clay's probably going to tell him about it, and he's going to hear about it, and there's going to be some upheaval. I think there maybe needs to be a little upheaval here. I think a little upheaval for the Warriors right about now would be a very, very good thing. And I'm not sure what that upheaval includes, but it has to be something major. It has to be, I don't know if it's having Kerr move on, kick him upstairs, if it's trade Wiggins, if it's trade Draymond, if it's trade Chris Paul, if it's Kuminga, Moody. I don't want to move Kuminga or Moody, but because I don't think you're going to get good enough value for them right now. But this team needs a major shakeup, or get ready for just a really long season of just thorough mediocrity where they're going to win 40 to 42, maybe in that range, and struggle to make the playoffs. Is that what they want? Is that what they want in the twilight years of Steph's career?
I'm with you. I think something's coming. It's sort of like that scene in Jurassic Park where T-Rex makes its first appearance and they see the water in the car and it's jiggling. You just know something's coming. I think last night was sort of the indicator it's coming. And what that is,
I hear the steps.
It's not going to be small. It's going to be T-Rex-esque.